I haven't cried or felt that much emotion during a movie in a very long time. And Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio is truly a masterwork from him. Hi everyone, welcome back to Candid Cinema. I'm Amanda, otherwise known as AMX ND Reviews on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. Today I will be reviewing Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio from Netflix. Before I start, I just want to thank Netflix so much for this lovely opportunity to watch it on the big screen at TIFF. It was an experience. So everyone knows that Guillermo del Toro is incredibly special. He's a very gifted filmmaker. The way that he tells his stories is it's something so personal and intimate and heartfelt, and that comes through in the visuals as well. There's a very humanistic and emotional connection to his characters constantly, even if they are through creatures. He's someone who is able to ground his stories, ground his characters, even through fantastical elements like we've seen in majority of his films. And in this case, with Pinocchio, it is the most accurate adaptation of the story that we've seen millions of times throughout the decades. It is the most heartfelt. It is the most authentic to, the Italian culture for Pinocchio that I have seen, and it is the best adaptation to date. I know we got one earlier this year, but this one specifically, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, does something that I have never seen before. Now, this is an adaptation from a novel by Carlo Collodi's The Adventures of Pinocchio, so it is a bit different from what we've seen in the past, but I really love this one because Geppetto gets his backstory. It's really important. I'm going to tell you why it's really important. All the other Pinocchio movies didn't have an emotional attachment to Geppetto. They really didn't. If you watched them, I've watched a couple. I think I've watched 4 or 5 of them. And for me, it's the implication of the story of Geppetto losing his son. We never really saw it. We didn't. No flashbacks. It was just something that was said that he lost his boy. And one day he wanted to build this wooden boy. Okay? Some of the stories that we've seen for Pinocchio didn't really make sense narratively, and some of them weren't the best in regards to showing the connection between Geppetto and Pinocchio. It felt like a run-of-the-mill, like this is how the story goes. We have to put certain things together for Geppetto and Pinocchio to work. In this case, we got to experience Geppetto's pain. We got to experience Italy during the war. We got to experience his connection with his son Carlo. We got to experience that. That is why this movie and the connection to Pinocchio, the connection to Geppetto and his loss of, being a father and fatherhood changing for him, carrying this emotional burden of the fact that he lost his son, he's never going to be able to have him back again. It is just so emotional from the very beginning because of what Del Toro does visually. And the stop motion animation is exquisite. It is absolutely phenomenal to watch this movie from beginning to end because of how far the technology has come for stop motion animation. It looked lifelike. It was fluid. All of the movements, even though the Pinocchio is wooden, everything was just so lifelike. And the most amazing thing that Guillermo del Toro has done throughout his entire career is to build these phenomenal worlds to get lost in. And this is exactly what happens in this film. There are other characters introduced. There are other creatures that have been created by his mind, his vision of what these characters do and work together with Pinocchio's story. Everyone has a hand in trying to mold Pinocchio into the perfect little boy that, Geppetto wants him to be, or that the fairies need him to be. And they say that, it takes a village to raise a child. That's literally what this feels like. But at the same time, Pinocchio has a mind of his own. He grows, he evolves. And I actually really love what they did with Jiminy Cricket, who was voiced by the phenomenal Ewan McGregor. Absolutely fantastic, because that is the first voice that we hear and you recognize him instantly. It's something that brings you comfort because he does have a comforting voice and you can tell that it's him. I love that we opened with Ewan McGregor's voice. He plays Jiminy Cricket. They obviously can't use Jiminy Cricket, but they use Jiminy Cricket in a really interesting way. I just love how realistic this was to the actual story from Carlo. I just think that it is a beautiful, beautiful film from beginning to end, because it shows how much people have a hand in shaping who you become. Whether it's good or bad, the decisions that you make in regards to the people around you help shape you. And Jiminy Cricket wasn't so much as like his voice of reason or his conscience. It was more of like his pal, his buddy, giving him aid, helping him along the way to become a good boy. But at the same time, it's ultimately Pinocchio making these decisions, these mistakes to, help him learn to be a real boy. But more importantly, that nostalgia that we feel tied to the Pinocchio story does play on your emotions, but it's more so what Del Toro visually presents to all of us. They're very small objects that he focuses on that create that emotional connection to Pinocchio and to Geppetto. It's beautiful. It's also another film that explores grief in a very different way. It was hard for me to watch this movie. It's a very emotional movie. It really is. And it's hard to watch, especially towards the third act. It's just something that only he could evoke from an audience. Only the emotions that Del Toro can pull out of anyone, because of the way he has his audience connect with these characters early on in the story. It almost feels that you're living it with them, and everyone has their own personal ties to how they have grieved in the past, how it stays with you, how it changes as you get older. And sometimes you distract yourself to the point where you don't want to think about it, and then it comes in waves, and that's what we see with Geppetto. It's really tough to watch what happens in the end, especially with the way that Pinocchio's story has changed. It's a beautiful 10-15 minutes at the end of Pinocchio because of the changes that were made in the story. It's very, very well written. I love this. For me to cry, it was a lot. It was a lot watching it. I went with a couple of friends of mine who are also critics as well, and we were really trying to not cry at the end of this, or let alone cry throughout, because there were some really emotional moments throughout. But the ending, it's all about the subtlety. It's the subtle placements throughout the movie and how to show how these characters deal with their individuality, their own connection to the other characters and their dynamic, how they feel, how they express their feelings, the word choices that are, they're very important. Words do hold meaning, and they're really important, and they're special. So it's more so like, yeah, Del Toro created this beautiful world for Pinocchio, but it's more so the little moments that add up, and then it gets you in the end. It really does. I haven't cried or felt that much emotion during a movie in a very long time. And Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio is truly a masterwork from him, especially through stop motion animation. And I absolutely loved it. I loved it so much that I'm at a 4.5 out of 5 for this film. It is one of the best movies you will watch this year. It's one of my favorite movies this year, and it is the best version of Pinocchio that you will ever watch, and it's the truth. They can stop making Pinocchio movies after this because he won. Guillermo del Toro won with this one. No one has to make it anymore. That's it. It's done. Nothing will compare to this. It is a phenomenal film. For me to cry during this review, it was tough. It really was. So please let me know what your favorite Guillermo del Toro film is in the comments below. If you guys enjoyed this review, please like and subscribe. You can always follow me over at AMX NDA Reviews on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. I'll catch you guys next time. Keep watching movies.